Oh, yes.
Welcome back once again, everyone. Today I'm doing an overview of the first wave of Masters of the Universe Origins figures. This will be something pretty similar to my Transformers wave retrospectives or Toyland retrospectives, though I expect it to be quite a bit shorter because there's a smaller number of figures and they don't transform or anything, so there's not multiple modes to show off. But I thought it would still be a good idea to just kind of give some thoughts and some takes on the wave as a whole. Now, this wave actually came out last year in 2020, so obviously I'm a bit late looking at these figures, but I did only just recently get into MOTU and the Origins line specifically. So all of these toys have been available for quite some time, and some are harder and some easier to find than others. Specifically, your He-Man, Skeletor, and Battlecat are all over the place. They're still being stocked at stores, especially Walmarts. You can go into any Walmart and these guys are everywhere. The other figures in this wave have all but disappeared from store shelves, and some of them you can still find online pretty easily. Teela, Man-at-Arms, Evil-Lyn, you can usually get them for at or around retail price. The Prince Adam and the Skysled, you can still find those for retail online. The one that I particularly had a lot of trouble finding, and I don't know if it's because it was short-packed or just higher demand or what it was Beastman. I actually had to look overseas just to find one that was less than like 35, 40 bucks. So that is interesting. On the plus side, you can get most of this wave relatively cheaply. The only one you may struggle on is old Beastman here. So my thoughts on this. Well, again, I am just now getting into Master of the Universe, and I never did collect the original toys back when they were out. I mean, for one, I wasn't even born until like the tail end of the original toy line. And yeah, they were still, out there, still on shelves, but it was just tiny bit before my time. And like, I knew of He-Man, I'd seen the toys, mess with them, I'd seen the show a little bit, but I was into other things, right? Ninja Turtles, Transformers, Power Rangers even. So this just kind of passed me by. And it wasn't until the new Netflix show came out, Revelation, that I watched that, and it got me really curious because I loved the aesthetic and everything, especially that whole opening sequence there in the first episode was just phenomenal. And then I went back and started watching the original cartoon, and I was like, you know what? I really do want these. So here we are now. I have this whole wave. And I know that Origins is meant to kind of recreate the original toy line. The biggest difference being much more articulation in these toys than the originals. And just about all of the figures have had their head sculpts redone to some capacity. To either just make them look a little better, bring them more in line with their more well-known appearance. The biggest examples would probably be He-Man himself, who has a head that looks a lot more like the animation than the original He-Man toy. The original He-Man actually, in my opinion, looked a lot like Stretch Armstrong. Man-at-Arms, another good example. The original toy didn't have the mustache. That was added to the cartoon to make him look older, and that's just become his default appearance now. So those are kind of just the obvious differences. And then there's another one specifically with the He-Man body type, and I'm not sure why it is this way exactly. So the original He-Man toy had two different sets of like bracers or armband type things. He had one that looked pretty much like this on this arm that holds a sword, but then on this arm he had more of a almost like a forearm shield kind of thing. It's actually on the new Revelation show they added that to his design. So if you're kind of curious what that looks like, it's just more of like a buckler kind of thing going on. But they weren't painted, which was always the odd thing. They were always just left flesh tone for whatever reason. So they've changed that with the new toys. They give him two symmetrical bracers, which look like, more like what he had in the TV show, and they actually paint him this time. And because they made that change to the He-Man toy, it has affected every other character that uses those forearms, right? Including like Man-at-Arms, the Prince Adam toy here. They all have that change carrying forward. So it's a pretty minor detail, but it's one that I picked up on as I started reviewing these. Now, this first wave is very significant for a few reasons. One, it establishes, kind of the core cast that most people would recognize from the cartoon. Obviously, you get your main characters, He-Man and Skeletor. And then the rest of the wave pretty much consists of their most recurring supporting characters. So Teela and Man-at-Arms were always right there with He-Man and Prince Adam. Battlecat was always by his side. And then on Skeletor's side, Evil-Lyn and Beastman were in just about all the episodes, just kind of always there as his right-hand minions. The figure that's probably the most out of place in this is the Prince Adam Skysled. The original Skysled wasn't put out there in the initial wave of MOTU toys, and then Prince Adam himself wasn't originally released in the old school MOTU toy line, though they did later make toys of him. So he's just a little different, a little out there. One thing that's neat is that they did keep the combining sword gimmick from the original toys. Let's see that here, if I could get it off of He-Man. Give it up, bro. I know you like it, but come on. All right. So, they get the whole good sword, evil sword thing that combine into the sword of power that lets He-Man transform into, He-Man. And, this was a concept that wasn't originally carried over in the show, at least not until Revelation as a sequel. But the whole idea was that they each had half of a sword, and when they combined it, that sword served as the key to Castle Grayskull. So Skeletor was always trying to get his hand on He-Man's half of the sword. So it is a really neat little gimmick. Obviously, it makes for kind of a weird-looking sword because it's half silver, half purple. Plus, on mine, the tips don't like to stay together very well. It kind of forks out on the end, which is unfortunate. But yeah, overall, I think these toys are just a really great introduction for people that, weren't already super familiar with the franchise. It's a really great way to kind of pull us in and then show off the quality, right? These look like the 80s toys at first glance, and when you actually, get a hold of them, they're modern action figures. They're very posable, right? They're something along the lines of like a Marvel Legends toy. And I think overall they do a very good job of conveying that. I'll point out one thing I really like is the Skysled and how much they did with this. So they gave it a stand for it to hover over, which wasn't included in the original. And they actually made the parts swappable. And I showed that off during the review, where you can swap out the head and the little side panels to make it the War Sled, which was the evil version of the Skysled from the cartoon. I still wish they would just sell that separately. Or, just sell a Skysled without Prince Adam, because I don't have to double purchase Prince Adam in order to get both versions on a shelf. I may have to, though. Maybe I'll just give Adam to one of my kids. We'll see. So, I'll say, overall, I really enjoyed this first wave. It was an awesome introduction to the toy line for me. Really just got me familiar with the concepts and how it works, how, the shared body types go. And in reviewing these, I did a lot of research, and I learned so much about them, learning how Teela serves as both, her familiar character, but also the goddess character, seeing just how easily a new set of accessories, a new coat of paint can really just transform something that is essentially the same exact body into different characters. I mean, how many people even picked up watching the cartoon that Teela and Evil-Lyn had the exact same outfit? Like, aside from the, whatever form of headwear they had, from the neck down, they wore the same thing. I never picked up on that. Until I, got the toys. I didn't realize it. So yeah, there were a lot of surprises in this for me, which, for something that debuted in the early 80s, you wouldn't think there'd be that much left to surprise me with, but really, I was pretty just impressed with how deep this essentially boys Barbie doll toy line was. So I really love it. This has gotten me so hooked on the franchise. After this overview, I'm going to start releasing the Wave 2 reviews. I'm going to try to do these in order until I'm caught up. I am caught up. I have all the toys now, by the way. Everything that's out, except for, some old PowerCon exclusives. So I'm just going to go in order, wave by wave, release them as rapid fire as I can to get caught up. So look forward to Wave 2 right after this. All right, I think that's all I really have to say about this first wave. Again, I do really like this. I enjoy collecting this very much. So now, the most important part, I want to know what you all think of this. What are your impressions of the first wave of MOTU Origins? Did it meet your expectations as a He-Man fan? Do you like the changes they made, or would you have preferred just a straight reissue line like they do with the G1 and Beast Wars reissues for Transformers? And if there is anything you would change about this line, what would it be? Any and all feedback is always welcome in the comments section. If you enjoyed this little overview, make sure to toss it a like. Let YouTube know you want to see more like this. If you do want to see more like this, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you always get a heads up when I post something new. I thank you for joining me for this look at the entire first wave of Masters of the Universe Origins. And with all that said, I will see you next time.